All right, hello everybody. Welcome to Dev Tool Time. I think we're live both on Twitch and YouTube right now. I just want to thank everybody for coming out, and I want to thank Mitchell for being here. We'll go through some introductions and then we'll get started. So my name's TJ. I'm an engineer on the Code Intelligence team at SourceGraph. I've been working here for a little bit now and having lots of fun making all sorts of different language extensions and things like that. I'm also generally involved in the Neovim community, which I enjoy a lot, and I think we'll be talking a little bit about today. So speaking of Neovim, we've got Thorsten here with me. Thorsten, you want to give a little intro?
I'm Thorsten. I'm not a Neovim core contributor. I am a big fan, though, of TJ's work and the other contributors' work. I'm an engineer on the batch changes team here at SourceGraph, and I very much enjoy talking about developer tools. Awesome. All right, Byung.
Yeah, hey everyone. I'm Byung again, CTO, co-founder here at SourceGraph. I love developer tools. I'm also an Emacs user. I just want to clear the air and get that out of the way from the get-go, because I know there's going to be a lot of Neovim propaganda. stories discussed.
It's not propaganda if it's just like objectively better.
Shots fired. All right,
we've got the stories to confirm too. We'll get there. We'll get there, I'm sure. Awesome. And then welcome to our special guest, Mitchell. Mitchell, you want to give yourself a little intro?
Yeah, hello, everyone. Thanks for having me here. I am one of the founders of HashiCorp. Very active developer still. HashiCorp's, creators of things like Vagrant and Terraform and Vault and some other tools. So, yeah, that's the gist.
Very cool. So we're going to start with just a picture of Mitchell's setup. And Mitchell, do you want to walk us through sort of what's going on here, what kind of hardware and everything you're working with?
Sure. So, you got my screen up?
Yep.
Cool. This is a photo I took a few weeks ago. Basically, I work most of my time on an iMac. That's what I'm looking at. I work from home, so this is a home office. I've worked from home for 9 years now. So when we bought our house and stuff, this was a consideration of lighting and stuff. So work with an iMac. I have a bunch of laptops. You can see 3 on the left. I don't really use any of them. The bottom one is a really old used laptop from IT that I use for testing. The one above it is my official HashiCorp laptop that I use when I'm on the go. And then the Air is an M1 device that I primarily use only for testing and casual non-work related stuff. So that's the personal one. And then on the right, you can see my iPad Pro. I use my iPad for everything. I'm sure we'll get into that, but I use it for personal stuff, just browsing and whatever. I use it for work. I use it as, what you can see on here is actually I'm a hobbyist pilot as well. So I use it a lot for flight planning and that sort of stuff. And I use it while I'm in the air. So I love the iPad. We'll talk about that a lot. So I think that's the overview.
Cool.
I like how understated the 3 laptops are. I thought this was the stand for the single laptop. I said 3 laptops. Where are the other 2? Oh, okay.
I actually thought exactly the same. I was looking on the shelves in the back. I was like, where are these other laptops he's speaking of?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had some people come over to our house and be like, why are there 5 computers here? What's happening?
There was a question in chat. Is that a stack of Raspberry Pis in between the iPad and the iMac?
Yeah, and I still have them right here in front of me. But these are my Raspberry Pis. This is actually... they have SD cards. Some have SD cards in them right now, but this is actually running a Nomad console, a full HashiCorp stack. It's not plugged in right now, but I have a full stack, and I went through a phase where I was home labbing a lot with Raspberry Pis for absolutely no practical reason.
I feel like Thorsten's got some experience with that.
I have practical reasons.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to imply. Practical reasons. Probably Twitter clout and stuff like that.
They're not good practical reasons, but I have some, I guess.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. Yeah. So maybe we can start talking about the iPad. I think a lot of people are going to be pretty interested about how you're using that, especially as it relates to work. I think.
Sure. Yeah. So the iPad, I like to tell people I use it for everything except coding. So that's pretty much it. But anything other than coding, I'll pull out the iPad. Let me just share the screen. I have it here, and I have a mechanism that I could get this on. Let's see if it works.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I could AirPlay it. We just did it, so it was working. Oh, there we go. 8, 1, 4, 5. I just bought this app last week, so yep, there it goes.
Nice, very cool.
Nice.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, the primary way, I have an Apple Pencil too, and that's really critical to the whole thing. So I use it to take a lot of notes. So I use this app called GoodNotes Pro, GoodNotes 5. I don't know what it's called. GoodNotes something. And here's an example a couple of years ago from when I was like planning a keynote for a conference. And the thing I like about this note-taking app is like you could see here, I could screenshot stuff and like throw an image directly in here. I could write on the image if I want to. And then, it's just really easy to freeform stuff. And here's an outline I did. It's easy to do different colors and write whatever you want anywhere. And yeah, I use this all over the place. It syncs with iCloud, so the data is relatively local. I mean, it has to go to Apple, but it doesn't go to like the vendor. Like the GoodNotes vendor can't read my notes, which is something I trust Apple more than most app developers. So that's good. And then it's just so much easier. Like one of my favorite features is that I'm like pretty OCD when I write on physical paper, which I used to do for a long time, of like, what if I need more lines like down here? Like, am I wasting space? And one of my favorite things about like this digital thing is I could be like, oh, this should have been somewhere else. And I could just like go over this and like move that over here.
That's cool.
Stuff like that, and undo obviously. But that just makes it so that when I'm taking notes, when I'm freeform writing stuff, like I just write wherever. And then I just go and select it later and move it to where I need to and make it prettier or more organized, I guess. But I use this a lot. I use this sort of in conjunction with, let me open. So here's like, we have a very written heavy culture at HashiCorp. So this is actually like an actual RFC that we wrote. I use the browser, not the app, because the app has some bugs and I do better with the browser. But like this isn't very Apple Pencil friendly, so I'll like read stuff here, and then I'll kind of just like flip back over and then write notes on what I'm reading, like as I go through it. I don't use the split screen too much because I do like reading documents and stuff in this portrait mode rather than landscape. So yeah, that's sort of my main use case for work.
That sounds like you do this when in read mode or ideation mode. I suppose you don't do a lot of writing, like longer form writing or something. How do you distinguish between what you do on your main computer versus what you do on the iPad?
Yeah, so I don't really do like long form typing or document creation on the iPad, but what I will do is like write out an outline or like a bunch of notes like this on quote unquote paper. And then I'll turn this into an actual doc on my computer.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Do you just like type like copy the notes over, like manually typing it in, or is there some?
That's a good point. So let me see if I could move this over. So one of the nice things about GoodNotes is they have an app they ported like over to here, so I could actually go to like HashiCorp Docs and open the thing I was looking at. So here's the same document I was looking at, but on my computer. So this is like an awful app for producing content, but it's really good for just reading the iCloud synced stuff you did. So I'll write it on the iPad, reopen it here, and then use my keyboard shortcuts to put one window here and one window on the right and kind of type up the document as I go.
That's cool.
Someone in chat was wondering, was that Hammer Spoon or Alfred that you're using?
This is Alfred.
Cool. Thanks.
I've actually never even heard of Hammer Spoon. I don't know. I'm one of those people, I don't pay super close attention. I've used Alfred for like a decade. So
Yeah, Hammerspoon's like Lua. You write Lua scripts to control things in Mac, basically.
Ah, I see. I see.
Yep.
So yeah, I use Alfred here, and then what you're seeing to move stuff around is this old app called Slate, like
Oh yeah,
old
Okay.
The window
2011
manager.
and stuff. Yeah, I've been
Ah.
wanting to change this. There's some really much better modern ones, and I've been wanting to change it, but I really only use it for like really basic like corners and half splits
Mm.
and full screen and stuff. So I'm pretty happy with it, but that is something I want to look at changing.
And I assume you sync all of this stuff through iCloud, so you don't run into
Yeah.
like I have the tab open here. Now I need to type in the same thing again on the iPad or something. So you have like a seamless switch.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I'll use it mainly for like apps like this. I mean, I don't need to like sync my browser tabs as much. That doesn't really
Mhm.
come up. So yeah, but I do use iCloud as much as possible. Like I am not a big fan of third party like
Yeah.
cloud storage as much as possible, but I do trust. Like I said, like I got to draw a line somewhere. I want syncing, and I don't want to self-host, so I do trust Apple enough.
Totally. Another question about the iPad is, how do you use the iPad to learn and like read code repos or other things like that?
Yeah, I mean I use it for code review, so I actually have this open right here, and this is an example of like a PR, and this is sort of similar to the docs. I'll like go through file changes. I just like this form factor of carrying something in my hand, and like I could be sitting outside. It's just I find it a lot more pleasant to actually do this sort of stuff. So I'll read it here, and then usually what I'll do is similarly, so that I could hold it in my hand and not attach the keyboard. I will just use the pencil, find something here, and then I'll just like I don't know what's open over here, so I'll just go over here, and then I'll just write notes on a blank piece of paper somewhere. Oh, there's 29 pages, but imagine there's a blank piece. Oh, right here. Like I'll just write notes about like line 129 and then like scribble some stuff. And then again, same thing. I'll sync this to my Mac. I'll open it on my Mac one day, or I'll split screen if I'm mobile and actually just do it all in one shot after I've done the review and type it all up on my keyboard attachment all in one shot. For learning though, I tweeted something like a couple months ago where I'd love to see something better. Some people actually recommended SourceGraph, which was, I think, like one of the best experiences I could find on the iPad. But it still was like, I think it was the website. I can't remember. It was still like, I was trying to read through the Nix source code, the C++ source code, and I really wanted a way to basically like my workflow is dive into a stack, follow definitions like really deep. And I wanted to like save these stacks all over the place, which was like, okay, cool. This was the parsing stack, and this was this stack. So I could like have different stacks of like chains of thought, and then go back and like go through the whole call chain. And there's nothing that I could find to do that. So the best place I could still do that is a computer.
Yeah, you're looking for tag, stack, and jump list, right? So the Vim ideas, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Cool. And last question from my side is, it sounds like code review is not something you do in between. Like you don't take, like taking notes, writing them down, and then typing them up again on a computer doesn't sound like you quickly review code in between two calls or something. How much effort do you put into code reviews?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of code review. I do code review between stuff all the time. So like, I think the thing I don't context switch a lot between is coding and code reviews. So like, coding is the only mode that like, if I'm in that mode, I don't do anything else as much as possible. But everything else, like if I have Zoom calls or meetings or like Slack things going on, I'll interweave that with code reviews and all sorts of other document writing and other stuff. So, if I'm at my desk, I'll do it on my computer, of course, but sometimes like I'll just go outside and sit at a table outside or bench or couch or something. And I'll just do a Zoom call on my iPad, and then, okay, Zoom call's done. I have 10 minutes. Let me go hop into a short code review, do that, next Zoom call starts up, so on.
Cool.
Do you have a system for managing GitHub notifications? Like, how do you determine what is the
No.
next thing you're going to review?
No, so I usually this is actually rare in this one that I'm actually even watching this repo. Even like repos I'm working on, I usually don't watch them. And usually what I'll just do, let me actually stop this for now. Get the iPad out of there. Usually what I'll do is like just go to a repo and I just manually go through stuff. And I just keep track of it myself. I just keep track of it myself. Like issues, same thing. I'll like triage them once in a while. I'm gonna just unwatch it. I generally like really hate getting notifications about threads because I don't want to get pulled into it. I want to choose when I'm participating in a GitHub discussion. If there's something that's really important, this is a HashiCorp project. If there's something that's actually really important, they could ping me. And like, I think there's a better etiquette around like pinging and people being thoughtful around when they use a mention and stuff like that. So like, I would rather just like focus all that pinging energy onto something that people respect and understand.
Yeah,
Totally.
that makes sense.
We got another question from the chat. I don't know if you've actually considered this. Have you ever looked at Remarkable 2 versus iPad Pro? Do you know the Remarkable tablet?
Is that the e-ink?
Yeah, that's the
tablet?
I think
one.
so.
Yeah, the main issue is when you think about my other use cases. So I think I've definitely been really interested from a document reading and even editing standpoint to a certain extent, like for sure. But when you consider my web browsing and my pilot activities and things like that, like it's so nice that I have a all-in-one device.
Totally. Yeah, I actually have a Remarkable 2, and like it is awesome for the docs part, and I don't use it really for like anything else. I have except for maybe like drawing things and then putting it on the computer. It's very easy for that and works well. But I think like it sounds like your workflow has a lot more variety in it, I think.
Yeah, variety, and it's one of those things where like, is it replacing a device? Like for me, especially pre-COVID when I was doing a lot more business travel. When I did business travel, I generally didn't code during the travel period, so like the iPad actually replaced my laptop. I just stopped bringing my laptop places. Nowadays, I might take both or something if I'm coding, but still, like for the most part, the laptop gets very little time, and I use the iPad for everything.
Cool.
Totally, that makes sense.
Should we dive into the screen we see here, like the terminal?
Yeah, I think it's time to hear about your workflow on the Mac.
Sure. Okay. So my big thing on the Mac is I use a VM, graphical VM. So this is a NixOS VM running in VMware Fusion with a graphical interface. And I use this for all my development work. Basically, what I like to say is like it effectively replaced my terminal program. Like you could see, I don't run a terminal. So like VMware became my terminal. I still use the browser on Mac. I still use, Twitter clients, calendars, email, notes, messages, like all that on Mac. But all of my dev work went into a VM.
Nice. And the main reason is NixOS.
Yeah, it's so I wasn't, I mean, maybe I am now, but I wasn't like a zealot or anything looking to use Nix or anything at all costs. The practical problem I was trying to solve was how do I create a reproducible dev environment, and how do I sync that between and dev environment and like workstation, I guess, reproducible workstation, and how do I sync that between like this and my other computers? And so like I don't have my laptop up right now, but my laptop runs the exact same VM. And it's Nix, so like when I make change in one, I just rebuild the other one, and it comes up and it's identical.
Okay.
And then it's just little stuff like, the tooling, dev tooling and stuff is so consistent on Unix like operating systems, and Mac was always like there were so many tools, like little things like ImageMagick or Postgres or something where it's like, oh, if Mac, like consider this issue, and I was like, I want to get rid of all that. Like, let's just use Linux for everything.
Yeah. Can you bump the font size?
Yep.
All right.
Can you talk about maybe a little bit how you like first got interested in Nix, or like your story of like working towards being on Nix,
Yep.
I guess, like full time, quote unquote?
Yeah. So, I'm, at least in this industry, especially, I'm getting older or more experienced. I'll put it that way. The age has nothing to do with it. So, going back even a decade, I've tried a bunch of stuff around like using tools like at the time like Chef and Puppet, and I've tried just Bash script, well organized Bash scripts, and various ways to just make this automated, consistent thing. Nix was always on my radar. As like when I read their marketing copy and getting started stuff, I was like, this speaks to me. I don't know how good it is, but it speaks to me, and I've wanted to try it. So I started actually with Nix on Mac. There's a project called Nix Darwin, and I started with using Nix on Mac, and it works, but it's the same thing. It's like there's an asterisk of like Mac always has all these special things. So then I tried NixOS, and it was like immediately mind-blowing about how much easier of an experience it was to use Nix, and how like integrated everything was. And how it wasn't too hard once I learned Nix to get up and running. I think I got my whole NixOS set up in like a day, a weekend day. And so, yeah, that the main motivation was consistency and like not worrying about upgrades. I think one thing that always scared me every single year was the big, Mac OS release, and like what would that break, and is Brew updated, and like all this other stuff. And with Nix now, I haven't gone through a Mac OS update yet. This fall will be my first one, but my expectation is, as long as VMware, I'll wait for the VMware update, and then as soon as VMware works, then it'll definitely work. It's not an issue. I don't have any dev tools on my Mac at all. Like I have iTerm, but even if you open it, like you can see this is the default Z shell Mac thing. I have literally no dot files on my Mac.
So you moved all of your important dev tools out of the blast radius of macOS updates and said, I want this should be idempotent or like in your words, in case somebody doesn't know what NixOS is about, it's about reproducible builds or a reproducible environment, I guess.
Yeah. So everything is like, let me see if I can actually get it open here. 1, 2, 3. No. So I have like my entire Nix config is here. And it's all just as code. So here's like my, it's not pretty code. I don't particularly like the Nix language, but this is my entire user, like my Mitchell H user on Mac, and even if you could figure out this hash password, doesn't matter. It's kind of garbage for a VM anyway. So like there's all this stuff here. What packages I want installed, what tools I want installed, what environment variables I want set up. The more manual like config files in the XDG format, shell aliases for, I don't use Bash anymore, but Fish has them too, Fish, all this stuff. So it's all those codes. So if I wanted to make a change, like I could actually do it. I could just do it here. Like let's just add a Fish alias, which is like dev tool time, right?
Nice.
Like I could do something like this and save it, and then I forgot my make. It's like, it's been a while. So I could do make switch. It might be the default, yeah. So I could run make switch, and then like that rebuilds it, and it'll be. I should have that DTT shortcut in a second here.
I didn't know that you could also use this for. Well, I guess I didn't think about it, but using it for dot files. That's amazing that you can have a single file where everything is in there.
It feels a little bad because you have to buy into the Nix language, right? Like it's pretty non-portable, but so I probably have to make a new shell, but see?
Nice.
So I have it,
Nice.
and then, I don't remember the exact syntax for how to roll back. There's a Nix way that I could actually just like immediately roll back, but instead I could just get rid of this change and then switch back, and then immediately it's gone. And I think the other thing that's neat is if I rebooted my machine, every single change in Nix is actually entered into your grub menu as what they call a generation. So if you do something scarier, like if I update the Linux kernel and I restart and it didn't work, nothing is broken because I'll just restart again, and in the grub menu select the past generation, and everything is, but like atomically for all the changes. Like if I if I updated the Linux kernel and Vim in that generation, it'll roll back the Linux kernel and Vim in the previous generation, right? Like there's a way you could do it online. I just I just forgot. Yeah, I forgot the actual command.
That's kind of my dream of being able to git commit my system and then like, please commit at this stage. It. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, so my entire OS is under Git here. I recently rebuilt my laptop, like the OS, deleted the disk and reinstalled it, and through my Makefile, I could set up a VM and install it and have it fully running in like 20 minutes. And I don't have to type anything, right? Like it's all Nix. Like I'll have this exact i3, all my dot files, all my like shortcuts, everything. I'll have it all set up in like one go. Oh, you can kind of see actually in my Makefile. Like I have the, Bootstrap 0, which is the first thing you run on a VM. So like it does all the disk partitioning, sets all the initial stuff up, and then after Bootstrap 0 and that reboot, you just run Bootstrap, and then it reboots into your done machine. It's ready to go.
Cool.
Yeah.
I feel like the Makefile is the scariest thing about this.
Yeah.
How many lines is this? Like, is this required, or is this you? No, I want this all in a Makefile.
Yeah, I just, I did this all by hand, and I was like, I'm just gonna pull it out, and then I wasn't scared. Like disk partitioning and stuff is pretty scary to just like slam into a Makefile. But I wasn't that scared because this is a new VM, and if I screw it up, it's a VM. I'll just delete it, redo it.
The risk is definitely lower inside of the VM.
Yeah.
So there was a question in chat like a couple minutes back where the question is, what is your biggest criticism of Nix and why is it the bad documentation? Is this, a large Makefile, and you said like the language is not that friendly. How easy is it to get into this?
Yeah, it's hard. I think my biggest criticism about Nix is that their learning curve is like a sheer cliff. It's the hardest learning curve of probably anything in tech I've ever learned.
Oh, really?
Anything?
Yeah, it's the. I think what helped, like I think what got me, I picked it up pretty quick, right? Like I was pretty productive in like a week or so. But like I think the reason I was so productive as well is because I'm already like a very experienced Linux system administrator. I like totally understand immutable. I'm familiar with functional programming concepts. Like there was so much prior knowledge I had that helped me pick up Nix. But I think like I've not recommended it directly to people because I'm scared of what that experience is like. I think something that is hard is people say Nix, and it Nix means a lot of things. There's the Nix OS, there's the Nix package manager, there's the Nix language, there's the Nix like theory, like of how like concepts. There's papers that they wrote that are generic from the tool. Nix is an implementation of the Nix papers, and so when I say Nix, like the fundamentals, the papers, all that stuff is solid and great and amazing. I think the OS is good, but like the language is really rough. So you saw some of it here. This is like kind of it looks obvious because I'm just setting up values, but if you're like, let me see if I could find. Let's see. Yeah, like this starts like what's happening here. Like if you show somebody this who doesn't know Nix, this is not obvious like at all what is happening in this file. It's hard. So yeah.
What is Go? Like self super are keywords, I guess. Go is you assign a variable and then.
Yeah, so let is setting up the sources scope, putting this in scope for everything after the in. Or actually one expression after the in. So this is all the one expression after the in. These are setting up two lambdas. So you're setting up a lambda that takes self and then a lambda that takes super. So your two functions in. And then this is the function body in the braces. And I commented it out, but in the function body, or it's not a function, it's an attribute set, but like a hash. But I'm setting the Go key to calling this thing in super, the Go attribute on that, a function called override attributes. I'm passing that a lambda that takes old attributes. Recursive you don't need, but recursive just means that, recursive under an attribute set means that like you could reference keys you set in that attribute set. Yeah, it's just like, it's so deep. And all this, all the way, by the way, is like lazily evaluated. So there's no obvious order to any of this.
I feel like there's two groups of viewers right now. One group is saying nice, and the other is saying maybe not for me.
Yeah, I think the OCaml Haskell people are like so excited right
now. One person asked, like, what's a cool benefit? I think you showed us earlier when we were talking about the like Proto C example of like CDing into one of your projects and having the flake load. I thought that was like pretty magical. So maybe we can show that, and then we'll see where we're at.
So there's this tool, one of the tools in the Nix ecosystem is this thing called Nix Shell. And what Nix Shell does is it reads, the really high level is, if you're an actual Nix user, you'll cringe at like this description. But I think the really high level is it evaluates like a Nix file, but all the packages you want to install and all the environmental variables, etc., are scoped only to this one shell session. When you exit it, it unloads everything and it does not affect your global system at all. Mm-hmm. And so I use this tool called Durem, which is not a Nix tool, right? It's like that's a way to set MBars by directory, but they have a Nix integration. So I actually have a
MBarC.
Yeah, I have an MBarC file in here, and I think this is Bash or something, and they have these functions. But if I have Nix Shell, which I do this because there's a lot of people that work on this project that don't, and so this makes it a no-op. Then I use Nix, and use Nix means to read the shell.nix file. Blah, blah, blah. There's a bunch of this goes really deep. This is like one of the issues. Let's see here. So this is where it's defined. But my shell, I call this make shell function, and I say in my shell I want Docker Compose and Go and grep curl and all these things. Protobuf pin. So I define my own package that actually pins the exact version of protobufs, and then all this other stuff, and then these are like MBars too, so I could actually, I have like this matches here. So I set all this stuff up, and when I CD out of it, this is no longer set. But if I CD into this waypoint directory, you can see it's loading it. Takes, 5 seconds, and then now I have PG host. I have Protalk. It's a very specific version. Same thing. I think if I'm out of here, I don't even have Protalk. Yeah. So that I use this to. The joke I make people is as soon as you start using NixOS and Nix Shell and all these things together, you're going to really quickly get this like superiority complex, because you'll watch your coworkers argue about, oh my God, did you get this update for this thing? It broke everything. And you're just like laughing in your perfectly pinned, stable environment at all times.
Yeah, I thought that was a really cool example of like how you can leverage that to make like projects work super well. I like picture it in my head as like virtual environments for your whole computer, because I've written a lot of Python, right? So it like feels like, oh, maybe I should say virtual environments that actually work for your whole computer.
I want to show this thing real quick, because I think like the other thing you get is it works, by branches and stuff. So like let's just put like, again, just put a new MBar in here, right? And reload it. And when I'm on this branch, I'm gonna have the dev tool time like MBar, because I just made it. Let me commit this so that it doesn't. Okay, so I committed it. If I go check out main again, then it might not have reloaded. Actually, it should have automatic. Oh, it's because I did a separate file, but I have it. But if I actually reload the environment, then it'll be gone.
Oh.
And so it's gone. So like the MBar thing is like a stupid demo, but like this is actually real, where I've checked out, because Nix is so pinned, I could check out, actually this will probably work. If I like check out 0.3.0, oh yeah, so it's reloading stuff. This is actually probably going to do a bunch of stuff, but this is actually going to check out the Go version, the proto version, the entire world of dependencies at the exact versions I used when we built 0.3, so everything still works. And the other way to look at it, so I don't know. Wow. I don't know if that was a version we used for 0.3 actually, but everything is back out. And if I go back to main, same thing, it reloaded it back to the modern environment. The other way this comes into play is when I update Go for the people who, or any version, dependency version, when I update it, and for other people who use Nix on the project, when they do a git pull, their dependencies also come up to date automatically. So we're always in sync at all times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say you could this kind of desugars into envars and setting the path and having the packages available and whatnot. But it would be a huge pain because you would have to deal with the OS package manager and, manage all of this, which we all know
there's
not a fun experience.
Yeah, and basically what ends up happening is this, and this might have, okay, that's fine. This is what ends up happening is Nix puts everything under Nix store. It calculates like this is usually, again, if you're an advanced Nix user, ignore this generalization, but 99% of the time, this is a content hash. So I don't know. I can't see anything obvious on here because they're not sorted here, but you might have like 10 versions of like libc installed at your system at any given time, and that's fine. And they have these like crazy tools where, because these are content hashes and they're like expected to be globally unique, what they actually do with binaries, which is wild, is they do a strings they treat a binary as a string and they look for these hashes, and that's how they figure out what they depend on. They don't use like build tools or anything. You could use any build tool you want. When the static binary or dynamic link library or whatever comes out the other side, they just string search it for hash looking strings, and they say like that's how you get your dependencies. And it sounds like really error prone, but it works perfectly.
Wait, they look at a binary and say, this piece in here, we know what this piece is, so that means this binary depends on this bit here.
Yep. And they wrote a bunch of tools around, so they don't use like LDD or OTool or anything else to like dig into a binary. We don't need to structurally know what an ELF binary is. That's not important. We'll just use a string search because we know the hashes are globally unique. If that hash is in there, it has to depend on this dependency.
Oh, wow.
And that's how they figure it out. And then they wrote a bunch of tools. If you go to like the Nix organization, they wrote a bunch of tools that are separate from Nix for like doing surgery on binaries, so that like they could build a binary that depends on libc, because a lot of things will like hard code it to, like user lib, whatever, libc.so. They'll like hard code it to this thing. And what they do is they wrote a bunch of tools to do surgery on it to change that to like Nix store, some garbage like this, and then like that. So it's kind of wild.
Is there any reason not to use this for like a per repo dev environment? Like if you want to ensure that the dev environment is easy to spin up for every member of your team for a given repository, like why not just mandate use of?
You need Nix set up. That's the hardest part, right? You need to have Nix available, and then to a certain extent, this is platform specific. So I do have some ifs here because I used to use this on Mac. So like on Linux only, I install Minikube, for example. So you can make this work, but I find that installing Nix is the hardest part. There are a bunch of, I think Shopify does this. I have a friend that works at Discord, like the Slack company type thing, Discord. He's gonna hate me for saying that, but
we'll be sending that out as the clip promo for this episode.
Oh man, I know the founders of Discord too. They're not gonna like that at all if they were to see that. But he works at Discord, and I think they did too. But they basically rolled out where you use Mac, but they have Nix pre-installed on all their employee devices, and so that they could use per environment Nix, but they don't use it to manage the system at all.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, very cool. I'm thinking maybe me and Thorsten are gonna have to check it out, and maybe we'll be 2 users at SourceGraph using it. I could see SG. We've been building a dev tool at work a bit to help people do stuff, and it could be very interesting. But,
I think if Nix was easier to set up, it's something I would have pushed to standardize on at HashiCorp more. We're not there. Like Nix just isn't at that point yet. But that's what Shopify does, and it's really great because most employees don't know Nix, don't interact with Nix, and that's fine because it doesn't get in the way of their system. We're not really at that point at our company, and I'm not trying for that right now.
Very cool. All right, so I think we should spend a little time maybe talking about how you use Neovim. I know me and Thorsten in particular are very excited about this. But before we get started on that, I'm hoping you could maybe share the story of how you got started on Vim-like editors.
Vim at all?
Yeah, how you got started on Vim.
Yeah, so for all the jokes earlier in this stream, I used to be an Emacs user. My actual journey, right, ignoring the really, really basic stuff, like if you go back, you could be like, oh, it's Visual Basic or whatever. But like starting at an actual editor, it was like TextMate, and then I got a lot of crap for that at some point in my life, and then I switched to Emacs because the company I worked for at the time was a big Emacs company, and so I used Emacs and I was happy. It was great. And then I joined this other company, and actually, same friend that works at Discord now, so this is also his fault. He was like, I was like literally harassed on a daily basis about my Emacs usage because I was the only Emacs user in the entire company. And like somehow every topic, what to order for lunch, like every topic somehow spun into being like, oh, like, we're going to get this for lunch, but Mitchell's an Emacs user, so he's probably going to get like everything became a joke. I was the butt of every joke, and I got so fed up with it that I finally was like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use Vim for 30 days, 1 month. I'm going to use Vim for 1 month, and if I like it, cool. If I don't like it, I'm going back to Emacs, and you can never make a joke about me and Emacs ever again. And I switched to Vim, and I never switched back. So I guess it is better.
Okay, but can you describe, like, what are your reasons? It sounds like you just got psychologically harassed into.
Oh, of course, the Emacs user is going to say that.
That's slander. No, enlightened is the word.
Well, I mean, I think the when I launched Emacs this is 10 years ago, so. 1, Emacs is probably very different, but also probably not. And then 2, like, it's fuzzy, but launching Emacs was like booting up an operating system. It was like, it took time for that thing to like get going. The first thing that stood out to me with Vim was, even after I got it all set up, was like everything felt instant in a way that Emacs didn't feel instant. And then the other thing that I just liked, I know this is like a totally divisive thing, but the thing I like the modality. So I like insert mode, normal mode, all the other modes that exist. Like, it just made so much more sense naturally to me. And then like little things like motions and text groups and stuff that you figure out are like mind blowing when you learn that everything is patterned in the same way. So like, you reference a word by W, and if you want to change things, it's C. So if you do CW, it changes the word. Like the fact that that's consistent, and if you're I don't remember actually some of the other motions, but like that I use commonly are more complicated. But like, I know there's really basic motions like, oh, like end of the line is $sign. Like if I want to change the end of the line, right, it's $sign. I change to the end of the line. Like once you learn these patterns, it's really, really consistent. Whereas I just felt, again, ancient knowledge, but I felt with Emacs, everything was like, is that a meta X followed by a control CO at the same time? Or like what? Like it was all different to me, but this had some consistency. Yeah.
So that means you didn't dive into this whole, one of the strengths of Emacs is that you can customize your environment completely to your liking by writing eLisp, and every Emacs configuration is different. Everything is in Emacs. You didn't get into this at all. Yeah. You just used it as an editor.
Yeah, I wrote a lot of Lisp. I did a bunch of stuff, but it was like, I'm fine with Lisp. I'm not enthusiastic to write Lisp, but at the same time, I kind of actually think Lisp is better than VimScript, but Neovim is now Lua. So there's a whole chain here, which is like, Lisp is so much better than VimScript. VimScript is like an abomination, but then now that I could write everything in Lua, like it's definitely over.
Yeah, that's true. I was wondering what the joke was. Like, what does an Emacs user order for lunch? Foot pedals, or what was it?
Yeah, I don't know. It's so long ago.
Wow.
I wonder if I could actually go back in time long enough in my dot files. Let's see if I could actually do this. Yeah.
Oh, there you
2010,
go.
I think I was a Vim Emacs user during this time. Okay, so this has okay, we have some stuff. Let's
I
go
see
way
rainbow
forward.
mode. Usually you're thinking,
Oh, update
Okay.
Emacs config up there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Fourth one.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. So let's just browse this tree. Yeah, see, so if you go back in time far enough, you could,
Oh, wow.
I was
Yeah.
writing some stuff. There's some
Yeah.
Emacs Lisp here, a lot of it. What is Mitchell H? I have no idea. There's a company I worked for, so nice. Just a password thrown in.
Somebody is panicking right now because they didn't change their password in 11 years.
No, that thing's definitely gone, but yeah, Vagrant existed. That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, this is like I was like 19 years old at this point. It's like,
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was doing, but
That's definitely an age where it's okay that you've committed your password to.
That's true. Everybody
get-
does.
yeah. Mhm.
it was private at the time. You could see the mistakes building to the point where, like, 6 years later, I would build a vault. You could see it happening.
So,
Yeah,
your Vim config, is this equally elaborate now? Or like you have lots of plugins?
Yeah, so my Vim stuff is all in Vim Miss because I run it as a plugin, like that is my own. So yeah, if you go to Vim Miss, it's public. You could see all my stuff. It's mostly agnostic to Vim or Neovim, but I do have some Neovim specific Lua now. But it's all guarded on Neovim existing. So this works with Vim.
Nice.
Yeah.
very
All
cool.
right.
Do you want to show us maybe just like moving around or reviewing something or just doing something inside of Neovim and like what you think is interesting there?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that people always ask immediately when I say I work in a VM is like, how performant is it? And I mean, I think you could see here, this is a 3,600 line proto file, and like I'm just browsing through it at like full speed. Like there's really no performance issues on Vim at all that I could get. I think I switched to Neovim recently. One of the things I really like about Neovim is that it integrated tree sitter and language server protocol. So I think the language server is running here. Yeah, it is. So like, little stuff like, there we go. Like I'm just like immediately getting errors inline, which is really nice. And then all my syntax highlighting, like I got rid of Vimgo. And then even on this proto side, all my syntax highlighting is tree sitter. So like you could actually see that this is coloring based on an abstract syntax tree and not like regular expressions. So that actually knows like I'm highlighting over this RPC thing here in the middle buffer. And on the left, it's highlighting the entire node that is the RPC thing, which is like super cool.
Yeah.
And this is like my own plug, because one of the things is when I switched to Neovim is there was no protobuf. Well, there was no protobuf syntax highlighting that used tree sitter, and so there was weirdness about it. And I ended up writing that tree sitter parser in like an hour. It's really easy to write a tree sitter parser. So like this is using my own tree sitter parser for protobufs, and yeah, it's just so easy.
You wrote a tweet, I think only a few weeks back, saying you went to Neovim 0.5 and used LSP. So this is pretty recent, right? And then you went all in on using the new features.
This is recent. It's like 3 or 4 weeks of Neovim. I did adopt Neovim at one point, like years ago, and it was fine, but there was nothing that really kept me there. And then Vim built a lot of async stuff and whatever that brought me back to the mainline Vim. And then recently with the tree sitter plus language server plus Lua is a big one, abilities of Neovim, I decided to give it a shot. I think saying I went all in is a little much, because as you saw, like in my configs, I only have like one small Lua file. So like all of this is still pretty portable. Like obviously I can't use tree sitter with normal Vim, but if I actually I might even have it still installed. So let me just, what is happening here? Okay, let me just quit out of here and then see. Actually, this might not load. I don't know. This might be Neovim too, actually. I don't know anymore. But yeah, I don't think I'm like all in yet. I haven't rewritten all my configs to Lua, which is something I still want to do.
Well, we're still working on a few things to make that easier.
Yep.
So there's not a big
Yep.
rush, I'd say. Yeah.
So
exactly.
Do you have any, let's say, workflow-related plugins you use, like fuzzy finding or something like this? Because I saw you just type in the full name.
Yeah, I always I struggle to pick. I do. I use Control P. I could actually like fuzzy search stuff. I always struggle to actually fuzzy search stuff because, like a lot of programmers, I could just type so fast that like I'm just gonna type this. Like I could just get there. I know the exact path. I could type really fast. Like it's not an issue. But for some stuff, yeah, I'll use a fuzzy finder. I haven't adopted like Telescope or some of the other really fancy Neovim plugins yet. These like I'm using Control P, which is like a decade old, stuff like that. So there's that. I don't really use much in editors, so I'm somebody who it's not that I don't believe, I just don't need an IDE. I don't feel like I personally need an IDE experience, like a full like featured run, debug, jump, like all that stuff in my editor. Like I don't want that. I actually don't use debuggers at all. I don't know. We could get into that. I don't like debuggers, but I generally just write code, switch over here, and then just do like standard go build, go test, swap back over. Like I don't use any of the built-in stuff.
But how do you do debugging? Are you like a printf man? Just
yeah, printfs, panics, like stuff like thinking. I don't know. Like I usually try.
Yeah, thinking is helpful.
Like thinking. Yeah, like I'll get it. I'll get like an issue. Let's just like pull up a random one. Like I don't know, like bug, sure, crash. I'll like get something and I'll just like look at it and sit back and like run through the code in my head and be like, how could this have happened? And yeah, like there's no response here. I ended up talking to him directly, but I figured this out without running the code. I was just like, and then I went and talked to him. Like I support people who use them. They're probably worthwhile to use, definitely. Another member on the team I'm currently on, like, did a thing where they were using a debugger the whole time, and it seemed great, but like, I just don't use them.
Yeah, but as we saw, you use the diagnostics, like so you get some form of feedback in your editor if there's something wrong while you're typing, or
Yeah, I mean, like, I just got that for free though. I didn't try to get that. Like, I turned the language server on, and I started getting errors, and I was like, all right, that's cool. But like, I really don't. I don't do like I don't know. Let me just like open a random file. I really don't do like auto importing, import sorting. Like I don't do any. I do that all manually. Like that. I don't like. I don't like things that write code for me. I'm like I want to do it myself.
Interesting.
I'm usually really particular. Like I follow I know that the auto importer could follow this, but like I follow a really strict like standard lib, third party, and then project internal separated by 2 new lines. Like I follow a strict pattern that we follow all through HashiCorp, and it's like stuff like that where like I constantly will get like pull requests that are like this, and I'm like I just add a little thing where it's like I don't know how it's happened, and it, like the response every single time is like, oh, it was my auto importer, and like it saved you 10 seconds. Like just write it yourself. Like you don't need that stuff.
I have to say that it makes me very happy that you feel like you got the diagnostics for free. That's that makes me feel really good deep down that it just worked. Like it's always nice to hear from users.
But it's a little aggressive. It's a little aggressive, if I'm typing something and I'm just like, I know I'm going to declare it. I'm gonna declare it. Just relax. Like,
Yeah.
It's a little too fast for me.
Yeah.
But you do use like jump to definition or go to definition, or so. Like you said, you turned the LSP on. Okay,
that's the only one. So like, yeah, I've recently become a convert to go to definition. I now will use that. But before, what I would do is be like, oh, this is interesting, and I wouldn't even copy it because I could type fast enough. I don't need that. I would just do validate user. I know somewhere. Okay, server state user. Maybe I'll use a fuzzy thing here. I don't know. That didn't even work. See, what is happening? I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would have just gone to it. That's what I would have done before.
Interesting.
It's easy to note that you don't use the fuzzy find often because the vendor folder is still in there. Like you don't ignore
Why
it.
is the vendor folder?
I don't know.
I think this is just like we don't actually use it. I think this was just the old, like I was modifying some stuff. So yeah.
Nice. So no, you don't use the built-in terminal support. You see, here's a test.
No.
You open another terminal. You type it in, history in your shell, and just run.
Yeah,
it.
and you could see like probably go to I use I call out specific things all the time. I'm usually not running like a whole package test.
Yeah.
I'm usually running a specific one, but I do that all manually.
Nice.
What do you use for window management? Do you ever open any like non-terminal thing in the Linux?
Yeah, yeah, I do. So I use i3 for the window manager, Kitty, I think, for my terminal, and then I tend to use my my like OS browser. However, if there's like little things, I don't actually have like a waypoint server installed right now, but I could actually launch Firefox or something. I have an application launcher too, but if there's like really specific things I'm gonna do, like you can see like all the things I actually did were like these are fake. I think these are just the default Firefox things. All the things I've been doing are like local servers, OAuth. That's all it is. Yeah.
And no problems with clipboard or something, because honestly I'm having problems with clipboard on my own machine. So
like I'm copying this string up here and pasting it right here.
Wow.
I use the VMware tools, so that's all there. And then I also mount my home directory. So I have my home directory mounted here, but I really, really, really rarely use that. Like I did that because I thought I would. The most common thing I do in my home directory maybe is like dive into my Dropbox folders, but that's about it.
Cool.
What about UI latency in Firefox? Is there any sort of like lag?
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons I don't use it. Like you could see like it kind of like like what's happening right now. Okay. It's kind of like chugging to start, which is kind of weird because like I showed you in the editor, like my editors never ever lag. They just like cruise, but the UI stuff, like this stuff is slow.
Interesting.
But I don't do it that often, so it's not an annoyance for me.
Yeah, totally.
There was a question in chat: why use macOS at all? I think you answered this implicitly.
Yeah, I'm kind of like in the Apple ecosystem, so like I use messages are indispensable for me, and then I actually like a lot of the apps on Mac, so I'll use like the Twitter clients and like stuff like this thing that I use today to screen share my iPad. But I'm like I use photo syncing and all the family stuff like with Apple. So, some people have said, oh, you could illegally ? If you're on Mac, maybe it's legal. You could run like a Mac VM in Linux or something, but it's like, nah, I'm happy doing this. Is super performant. I like the experience of Mac. I like the opinionated nature of Mac. Like it's fine.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think that just about wraps it up for today, unless there's anything else you wanted to say or shout out or anything, Mitchell.
I don't think so. I think we went through the whole thing.
Cool.
I want to ask my last question.
Go for it.
Magic wand. What would you change about your dev environment?
I don't know. Right now I'm pretty happy. I mean, I think my number one thing I wish was better right now is less about me and more about like I wish like Nix was more approachable so that could be a more standardized thing. I would love to like have more projects that when I go check them out, I have all their dependencies and I have everything set up. Like that would make my life better if that. But from a local dev environment, I'm pretty happy.
Cool.
Cool.
If folks watching this want to replicate your dev environment, except for the Vim part. Sorry, couldn't resist. Is everything open source? Like, should they just go to your?
Not yet.
Okay.
So yeah, all my dot files are there. I didn't. The only thing that isn't open source is my Nix config, and I want to. It's been on my to-do list for like months. And I mentioned this before. The only reason I can't do it is there's a secret directory, but in my secret directory, there's just fonts. So, and the fonts are like fonts I paid for, and like I don't have the license to open source those. So I just need to find a way to package my fonts up into a way to take it out of this repo, and then I could flip the switch. There's no other secrets inside this Nix config. But once this is open, like theoretically, you just get a Nix ISO and then VMware Fusion and run my make tasks, and it should just set it up.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for coming out. Thanks for showing us your dev setup. And I want to say thanks to everybody out there in chat. Hopefully everybody learned a lot, and, follow up with questions that you have to us. We'll be posting a recap later of this, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with more Dev Tool Time. Thanks, everybody, and thanks for my co-hosts as well for being here and asking such great and insightful questions, even if some of you are Emacs users. Not calling out anyone in particular, just saying. All right, and with that, we'll be off. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.